Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Men of Iron podcast. This whole month, we're going to be talking about men and their friends. You might think, I don't know if I actually care about that topic, but we've found over our course of working with different men that a lot of men just plain don't have friends. So I'm excited to jump into this month's topic, and we're going to, from the top, be talking about why men don't have friends. I'm here this morning with Tony Galati. Tony, what do you think about that?
Well, I believe it's definitely something that's a problem. I just got done with an anchored man.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting with anchored man, there is this one exercise we do where it says list 3 of your closest friends. And I walk around the room and I watch these guys, and some of them are struggling to put one name down. Mm-hmm. And every time I do one, it still surprises me. So it is an issue, but let's define what does a friend mean to you?
Man, it's huge, because I think when we talk about friends at Men of Iron, I would say there's two ways to look at this. One, you get together with your friends, you go to the bar, you go watch a football game, you hang out, do a barbecue, something like that. I don't think that's completely what we're talking about, right? Would you agree with that? Or
I would think we'd be talking friends that could impart some wisdom into our lives. And
I think that's the deal. We're talking about much deeper relationships. Guys that you can share life with, guys that can hold you accountable, guys that are dependable, guys that will show up when you need help. Mm-hmm. And I know, just looking at my own life, and I know from some of the small groups I've been a part of, a lot of us don't have a lot of friends like that. We have a list of guys we can call up and get together and watch the Super Bowl or something.
Yes. Right.
But we might not have a long list of guys that are you know what, if I find out my wife has cancer, I'm going to give them a call. If I find out my kid is sick, or if I found out that there's some kind of really serious issue in my marriage, I'm probably going to go through that alone rather than having a list of guys that I'm going to call, because some of the guys I'm going to call are going to be okay, you want to get together for a football game? Right. They're just not going to be sure what to do.
So does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me, because I think there's two kinds of friends. I think we are encouraging you to have really deep, dependable, accountable friends. But then it's also good to have a group of people you hang out with. It's not a bad thing,
right?
But I think it is a bad thing when you're missing that deeper connection. Yeah. And I think in a lot of ways men are resistant to that deeper connection.
Yeah. So when I think of this subject, I think, why don't we have friends? I almost want to say godly friends, but can we just say friends?
Sure. Yeah.
Why don't we have, here it is, the close, or dare I say, intimate relationship with another guy?
Yeah.
Right there alone, my discomfort tells me there's something wrong. Why do I not like to say intimate relationship with another guy?
Yeah.
The way I was raised.
Okay.
The culture.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with it, is being raised. Friends were just guys you did stuff with, never guys you really shared personal things, because that's weak.
Yeah.
Right? Is that maybe where it comes from?
What were your friendships like? You're talking from your own actual experience, right?
Yeah.
So when you're a kid growing up, what was that like?
So growing up, I think it was just all about who you hung out with and did things you enjoyed. So let's be honest, when you're growing up, you probably don't have too many serious things.
Yeah.
And when you experience certain things, you might have been influenced very easily. So maybe you just went along with things and you didn't say, hey, let's stop for a second. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why is this a good thing to do?
Yeah.
As I got older, I felt I just didn't have those friends. I like to be that guy for other people, but I didn't necessarily want that in my life.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah. Why did you not want that in your life?
I think it I'll speak for me. I think it probably goes to, there's accountability. There's maybe some things I don't want other people to know. And as you get closer, especially to a guy who's a Christian.
Yeah.
And you might share some things you're walking through. Maybe you're like, well, I don't really want people to know about that. I don't want people to judge me. I don't want to stop doing some of the things I'm doing. I just want to live my comfortable life.
It's funny. I think a lot of us, when we're going through difficult things, it's probably not on the forefront of your mind to be like, oh man, the next person I'm going to see, I can't wait to talk to him about this heavy situation. A lot of times we just kind of carry that quietly. And a lot of times that is not great for us. It's not good for us to go through life alone. And for a lot of men, we almost take pride in the fact that we can go through life alone. Like it's honestly, to me, like it's like exciting to be like, I don't need anybody else. Like I can be totally self-sufficient, man. I'm gonna be like an off-grid cabin kind of guy. But that's not really the best.
Right.
Because we need people around us. One, just to care for us, which doesn't feel very manly at all. But two, to hold us accountable, because sometimes we do stupid things and we need people to be like, hey, that's dumb. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Which we don't love hearing that.
Which is a real friend.
Yeah, for sure. And then three, I would say, like from the godly Christian perspective, like we need people that we can study with, read the Bible with, pray with, so that we're growing in our faith, because our faith is not a solo endeavor. It's something we do together.
Yeah.
And our faith grows faster when we do it together with other men, specifically.
Yeah. A story came to mind when you said that. I was thinking, I was doing some yard work.
Yeah.
And it was a crew of us doing it. And there was a certain person that was sort of like giving some directions. And, I went there with the heart to serve. But after a while, I started just getting a little frustrated, know? And it was funny because it's a guy that I just met. He just started coming to like a small group. So I know him a little bit. But he pulls me aside and he says, hey, I think you're a little bitter. And I looked at him like, who are you to call me bitter? And then I went, wow, that had to take some guts. And the way he said it, I know he wasn't like trying to call me out, like to insult me.
Yeah.
I really felt like, wow. I just walked away and I said, that's a guy that could be my friend.
So how, like, did you know this guy prior, or like he just kind of...
Just a couple of times I seen him at a small group, and he was an acquaintance, I would say, at this point.
Yeah.
But the day he called me bitter is the day he became my friend.
There you go, guys. There's step one to be making good friends is call people bitter.
Yes, just insult people. But he was right.
Yeah.
And it took that, I had to leave that defensiveness alone and go, wait a second, do you know number one, he was right. I wanted to correct that behavior.
Yeah.
And that was a good thing. And then I go, well, if he was in my life, what else can he help me with?
If he's willing to be that honest when you're just an acquaintance.
Yeah.
Like, what would that be like if he was like a close personal friend?
You know what? Other acquaintances might have been like, yeah, no, this is ridiculous, isn't it? You go along. But a real friend stops, and I think he cares and wants us to be better.
It is interesting when you think about like how caring you have to be to actually be honest with somebody close to you. And actually, I guess, honest to somebody that's not very close to you. And I would assume like he's being honest with you, but he's also not a jerk. I'm guessing.
No, absolutely. I knew it came from a good place. I knew him well enough that I knew it came from a good place.
So so this dude sees you mowing the grass. He calls you a bitter person. Where does your relationship go from there? Because you're saying you're like just acquaintances, but obviously like it grows from there, I would assume.
Well, the funny thing is like I'll be hanging out with him tonight. We're doing a mentorship. We do the Strong 27 mentorship. Okay. He's my protege. Okay. I feel like he probably should have been my mentor, but you know how that works, right? Yeah. But yeah, we see each other every other week and we go through the Strong 27 mentorship. But we have been, since that day, we have stuck together and seen each other once or twice a month.
How long ago was that day?
Oh boy, 9 years ago.
No way. Yeah. I'm curious if you can look over so the first thing, he calls you bitter in the yard. How many meaningful experiences have you had over those 9 years? Like, can you point back to other times in your life where he spoke into your life and it was like really valuable?
So one thing is we do a U version every morning together. Okay. Which is pretty cool.
So you're like doing Bible study together.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like this is the first thing I do in the morning. Yeah. My God time is I get on the app and I'm doing it and we're in the same plan. So, and then there's a comment section. So you just write about, what you learned and then we'll talk about it throughout the day. Like, so today we were talking about faith and we were talking about when I see you tonight, I want to talk to you about something. So I'm just like, I really do realize that maybe my faith isn't as strong as I think it is. Yeah. And so we'll have a conversation about that tonight. And it's just building each other up.
Do you think you could have done that day one, or do you think that's like the product of year over year?
Yeah, it's a process of building trust. Yeah. So that's something I hear a lot. Yeah. some guys will say, well, I've been hurt before.
Yeah.
Or I've said something to somebody and they went and told somebody else. Okay, so you can't just judge one or two relationships on now I don't need friends anymore. That's a horrible way to look at it, but I get it. I understand hurt. But there are godly men that want to just speak into our lives and make us better. And what I love about, like, when we look at a mentor-protege relationship, I don't care what role you are, you will always learn. The mentor can learn from the protege from the mentor. Yeah, but like as far as trust, I think it's something that has to be built over time. But you got to invest and be intentional in that, right?
That trust thing is huge. Like when we're talking about why men don't have friends, I just don't feel, and maybe it's just me, I guess, I just feel like our natural gear or mode is not to be overly trusting.
Yeah.
And when I think about developing new friendships, new relationships, even new acquaintances, actually, like the most basic, it's like, I don't know, like I don't know if I want to invest a ton of time in somebody who's just going to be a jerk or burn me, or I'm going to say something that I really care about to them and they're just not going to care about it. So like that trust thing has to be a huge ingredient in why men don't have friends, but also in how men develop really meaningful friendships, right? Like trust is huge. And it seems like you have that trust with that guy, the bitter yard guy.
Yeah, bitter yard guy. That's what I'll call him. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Can you think of any other reason you think that guys don't end up with solid friendships in their lives?
I think guys just want to be left alone sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of different ways I look at it. Like I look, just some of the relationships I've had, I'd say guys that might have been in sin and know that you are a Christian and maybe they don't want to stop that sin. And they know like if they don't have the friend, then they're not going to be challenged and they could just keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because like, let's be honest, we're not talking about a podcast of, hey, enjoy your life and have a, like you said, like a drinking buddy or a guy to watch games with. We all have that. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
We're saying a man that could bring some guidance and accountability and goals and just bettering each other.
I would say if you truly want to know God and know your purpose, like that's what we teach at Men of Iron, right? If you truly want to know God and know your purpose, you have to have real godly friends who are going to hold you accountable, that are going to call you up higher, that are going to push you to honor God more, that are going to be dependable and show up for you. So it's not bad to have acquaintances, but don't stop there.
Right.
Like just don't be satisfied in the fact that you can call somebody up and you can watch a game. Find somebody that is going to push you and move you further to God. And I hope you have that like in your family. Like I hope if you're married, I hope your wife does that for you. If you're dating somebody, I hope they do that for you. But I also hope that you have good, strong, godly Christian men that can do exactly that for you. And if you don't have that, you are missing out.
Yeah. Because that could be the difference of, man, I'm really tired of this situation.
Yeah.
Oh, well, just quit. That guy's a jerk anyway. Oh, I'm really tired of this relationship. Oh, just leave. Or, well, what is God telling you? Let's pray about it together.
Dude, yeah. It's huge to have a good godly friend that's like, hey, have you prayed about that?
Right.
And usually, so I have some godly friends that do that. And usually I'm pretty annoyed when they do that, to be honest.
Right.
Like I'm going through something, I know what I want to do. To be honest, I know in my mind it's kind of not right, but I still want to do it.
Yep.
And they're like, well, I'm just curious, like, have you prayed about that? Like, what's the Holy Spirit telling you?
Yeah.
I don't care what the Spirit's telling me. What do you, like, stop it.
Yeah. Tell me what I want to hear.
But if I didn't have that, then I wouldn't have that, like, almost like a security check.
Yeah.
That's like, hey, what are you doing? I know you. I know what you're like.
Right.
I know you're off. What are you doing to get yourself right again?
Yeah.
It's so super valuable.
Because you could be alone with your own thoughts and you could start rationalizing a lot of things.
100%.
There's not somebody else.
100%. And I think a lot of men fall into that position because we don't have friends. We know we don't have friends. And because of that, we make a lot of decisions on our own. And we're not particularly gifted at making the best decisions all the time.
No. We'll talk ourselves into a lot of things we shouldn't be doing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And what about the experiences they have in their lives where they can relate in certain situations?
Dude, I'm telling you what, like some of my closest, strong, godly friendships are people, one, I've been friends with them for a long time. But two, like we've both gone through difficult circumstances. And so he's been there with me. I've been there with him. We already have that. We talked about trust. We have that trust established and we're doing life, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. We're going to partner with each other to the end. I think about like Paul actually says like endure to the end, that you may receive the crown of life that God has for you, basically.
Yeah.
That's the Ryan's Hook paraphrase. But you want friends that will endure to the end with you, and honor Christ with you as you run the race well. Like, what an incredible blessing that is. And if you don't have that, you got to go find that. Now going to find that is kind of tricky. Maybe you just need to mow the grass and hope your neighbor calls you bitter.
Well, that's one way for sure.
Yeah.
But we had this conversation at a group I was leading, and the guy was like, well, how do I do that?
Yeah,
I'm not just going to walk up to someone and just say, hey, I'm going to trust this guy. He's going to be my friend. And that's not wise, right?
Right.
But being intentional, putting yourself out there, that could be a reason for going to church. That could be a reason for going to a small group, right?
Yeah, I mean, you don't meet friends by accident, right? Like, I guess you did out mowing the grass, so maybe that might happen for you. But sometimes saying like go to church gets a bad rap because it's like, it sounds legalistic.
Yes,
whatever. Well,
right.
Where do you meet godly people?
Yeah.
Most likely at church. Obviously, there's ungodly people at church. I'm not putting a blanket over anything, but like if you want to find good godly friends that are going to challenge you and push you, where do those people go? What do those people have in common? You could probably start with church. Right. Honestly,
that's a great point, because I don't like when someone like says, oh, well, you're a Christian, so you have to go to church, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't go to church, you're not really a Christian. Well, there's other reasons for going to church.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, you think about any other thing in life. Like, if you want to get better at playing baseball, you're not going to go to a soccer game.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if you want to get better at being a roofer, you're not going to study to be a mechanic. So if you're trying to find godly people that can push you and influence you and lead you and support you, go to church.
Yeah. We had no problem if we were looking for a girl going to a bar.
I was thinking that exact thing.
Right? No problem with that.
You
but
know where to find a girl.
Go to church to find a friend?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So you got to get involved in circles where those people are.
Yeah.
And you got to be kind of vulnerable. Like, you got to be honest about what's going on. Not too much. Like, don't dump your whole life on your small group that you are week one just met. But you got to be honest about what's going on, and you got to open up your life a little bit. That's hard for men to do, I think, to be vulnerable, to be intentional. It's not our natural gear.
Yeah.
But start taking steps that direction. And I think also, like, pray that God will lead you. Pray that the Holy Spirit will lead you. Be obedient to what he reveals to you, and watch as God blesses you with really good, solid, godly friendships.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
And we believe it'll happen.
Yeah.
I mean, God is a good God. He's a good Father that loves us and gives us the things that we need. And we need good, godly friends.
Yeah.
So just one more thing to close us out on. I think about Proverbs 27:17. Like, it feels like Men of Iron should probably talk about the iron sharpens iron first. Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. That's the NLT. Sometimes we say one man sharpens another man. That's literally a proverb about having good, solid friendships.
Yeah.
And we really do desire that every one of you would have that in your lives, that you would have solid friends that can hold you accountable, that can be dependable, that can push you to honor God more with your life. If you don't have that, you need to find that.
Yeah.
So we just encourage you, a challenge for this week. Maybe it's time to reconnect with an old friend. Maybe you were really close with someone in the past. Maybe something happened. Maybe some kind of tension came up. Maybe you just got disconnected. I would like to challenge you, if you're listening to this podcast week over week, reach out to that friend this week. Tell them to check out the podcast. Just be like, hey, I was listening to this podcast. What do you think about it? Boom, you're already in a conversation. You can talk about the topic. Try to get reconnected with at least one friend this week. We're going to continue this conversation next week. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast. If you enjoyed that episode, you can go to our website, menofiron.org. You can also like that episode. You can ring the notification bell, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. But again, thanks for listening to the Men of Iron podcast.